Well, happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, March 18th in the year 2025, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. Well, as we continue with Women History Month, we continue to celebrate those women who have made history in some major way, but also those women in our own lives that continue to make history daily in their families, in their communities, and so on and so forth. Again, these women include mothers, wives, girlfriends, aunt, friends, bosses, teachers, and of course, grandmothers. Our G-List guest today is a young mother who is carving out her own history. Emily Hedrick, a team member at Best Girl, is the Chief Creative Officer at Brand-itude, a creative marketing company dedicated to crafting unique brand personalities and fostering connections between businesses and audiences. And through her career, she has consulted with a diverse array of businesses ranging from accounting firms to travel agencies to higher education associations to health and beauty product companies, effectively managing their social media presence, websites, and assorted communication initiatives. So we look forward to having that conversation with Emily Hedrick. It should be interesting. Our show today, of course, is brought to you by the Best Girl consulting firm. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl continues to customize the solution that fits your needs. So let's go to our roundtable and talk to Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker and see what they got going this morning. Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good
Doing
morning,
well.
everyone.
Good morning.
Doing great.
All
Thank
right, what you got for us this morning, Barbara?
Well, Tom, I spent the weekend in Montgomery, Alabama, thanks to my dear friends Barbara and Tom Larkin, and got a chance to spend some time with other friends of ours, Charles and Sandra Johnson. Went to Montgomery for the Montgomery Smooth Jazz Festival. We had a wonderful evening on Friday with all the jazz entertainment. And then, of course, because of the weather, we had, severe weather here in the state of Alabama. The entire state was under a state of emergency. So the Saturday events ended up being canceled. But thanks to Sandra and Charles, we still had a great time. Got a chance to go visit the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts, where Sandra Johnson serves on the board of directors. Met some wonderful people there. Got a chance to go to eat at some fine restaurants there, thanks to those two fine people. And it was just a great weekend all together. And they happen to be members of First Congregational Church in Atlanta, where Ambassador Andrew Young is also a member there. And we watched church services on Sunday morning, and Ambassador Young was speaking. But I found out his daughter, Lisa, passed away on Friday evening. And even after all of that and dealing with that grief, he still spoke on Sunday morning and brought a very strong, dynamic message. So our condolences to the Young and Alton families. But all in all, it was a wonderful weekend.
Okay, well, good deal. Sounds good. Michael Walker, what about that big fight in Atlanta? Man, they just fight Atlanta all the time.
Which one was this?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about this one.
Oh, man, they were fighting like cowboys.
When? Where?
I saw it on some of the news. I don't know. They said it was a bunch of black dudes. They were fighting, man, like cowboys.
What were they fighting? What was the reason for the fight, Tom?
Oh, I don't know why they were fighting. They were fighting. You just accept that fact. I don't know why they fight. Why would you?
It can be injuries in these days, I know.
Yeah.
That's funny, Tom. You mentioned that, and I was talking to somebody, and they were asking me about our beloved Auburn basketball team, and if I thought they would win the national championship. And I said, well, I kind of doubt it. I say, we have a maturity issue on the team, and we have an issue of people not really thinking clearly at certain points. And they said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, take this as an example. Our first game of the year, away game, we were traveling to meet Houston, and they had to turn the plane around because two basketball players got in a fight in midair. I say, now just think about that thought concept. You have a thought in your brain that we in the sky in a plane 30,000 feet, and we fixing the ball out. We gonna fight. And so the guy, I told it to him, he said, well, what were they fighting for? I said, I don't know. I said, but that's not important. What's important is, how do you get to the conclusion that fighting on a plane is a good thing, and you with a teammate on the way to play a basketball game in Houston? I said, we're not talking about terrorists taking over the plane. I understand that. You're fighting for your life, but you're going to play a basketball game.
We're talking about teammates.
Come on now. Yeah. How does that thought register that, given all of these things I have no control over, I'm going to get in a fight on the plane?
That's interesting.
Very interesting.
but Tom, now I get back to what I was going to say. But, nowadays, young African-American men, they get a lot of negative press in the news outlets and what have you because of, say, behavior, whatever, lack of education and doing that. But I have to say, sometimes there is an exception. And I just want to make an announcement about this. A young man by the name of Mantavius Presley here in Atlanta, Georgia. He is a senior at Douglas County High School. He has been accepted to 58 colleges and universities so far, including Alabama, Howard University, Mercer, Morehouse College, Xavier University in Louisiana. Not only has he been accepted to 58 colleges and universities, he has earned a combined $1 million in scholarships.
Wow.
Good for him.
Yeah, I saw that story, Michael. It was very interesting. I noticed one university was not listed there. That was Auburn. I wondered if he even applied or if he applied and had not been accepted. I would really like to know. That would be interesting.
Well, since you brought it up, I wasn't going to mention it. I just put it out there. That was my thought as well, and especially given some of the issues Auburn has faced with the lack of minority applicants or acceptance and the enrollment, this seems to be somebody Auburn would certainly relish going after.
Right. You would think.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. I thought that was good.
I think it's a great story.
Yes. Absolutely.
So he applied to that many colleges?
I guess so, or I don't know, man.
And usually, I understand this young man had a very high, I think, ACT score, and usually top universities go after, those individuals who score very high. So, he may have applied to all of them because they were actually recruiting him.
He's also president of Future Business Leaders of America and the National Honor Society and vice president of the student government class of 2025.
Wow.
Good for him, man.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
I hope he chooses the one that will help him further his goals and ideals and his life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something else I wanted to mention. There's a lot of talk about things that are changing with the new administration and different programs at risk and what have you. One thing that is being looked at is, along with the changes at Social Security and all the stuff, and there's a lot of noise out there, but it's one thing that could be particularly troubling, and that's called Social Security clawback. And what that is and there's been once or twice we've talked on the show about seniors being overpaid in their Social Security check because of a mistake with the Social Security Department and the workers or somewhere like that. Well, what they're saying now is that they're going to bring that policy back. But here's the problem with that policy. Even if the mistake is on the side of the Social Security and their employees, they are still going to hold the beneficiary 100% accountable.
Wow.
So in other words, if you get overpaid and with this clawback, you do not get your future benefits until that issue has been resolved 100%, even if they made the mistake. Now, what's so ironic about this is that before, I'll say during the previous administration, when this was talked about, a Republican senator from Florida said, no, that could bankrupt seniors and stuff like that. That is not going to be good. We cannot do that. They rolled it back. Now they're talking about doing it, and those same Republicans are quiet because it's Trump. I have an issue with that.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you talk about Social Security, I read a story over the weekend where there's a gentleman, I think in Wisconsin, he and his wife, he was 82 years old. They received a letter from their bank saying, the wife received a letter from the bank offering condolences in the death of her husband, and that they were notifying them that the Social Security Administration had notified the bank that they will be withdrawing, I think it was over $7,000 from their bank account because Social Security had notified the bank that this gentleman had passed away in November. He was, they called the bank and said there's a mistake somewhere. He's alive. He's sitting right here next to me. He's not even sick. And the bank said, well, Social Security withdrawing the money. You need to contact them. They contacted Social Security and they argued this gentleman down, saying, you passed away in November. We have proof that you passed away. He was like, you do not have proof. I'm alive. I'm well. I'm not sick. There's nothing wrong with me. And so they're still in this fight saying, thank God they had enough money in their bank account to cover their expenses, because for someone to withdraw over $7,000 from your account is
that could
crazy.
Mess up your budget. That could mess your budget up.
Absolutely.
So now what you're saying is Social Security somehow got it mixed up that this person had passed away.
Yes.
And so they stopped his Social Security check.
They stopped it.
And then the money that had been paid going into the account, they took it back out of his account.
Yes. Over $7,000.
But the man was $7,000.
Over $7,000, yes.
Over $7,000. Well, what documentation did Social Security have that the man was dead and he's standing there talking to him saying, I'm alive?
That's what he wanted to know. What kind of proof do you have that says that I'm deceased? They couldn't provide anything. Could not provide anything. So they don't know if it was a computer glitch or if this is something that Doge found. And of course, it was a mistake. There was another situation where Doge said that an 11-year-old was receiving Social Security benefits in error because an 11-year-old should not be receiving Social Security benefits. It so happens that this 11-year-old child was a dependent of someone who had been on Social Security and should definitely have been receiving Social Security. But because of the parameters that Doge had put in, saying that, a child at that age should not be receiving, they withdrew that money as well. So those are two situations where we know those have just been mistakes, huge mistakes.
Yes.
And the family's now trying to recover that money, and it's taking some time to do that.
See, that's a problem with taking someone that really doesn't understand the system or our culture over here and putting them in charge.
Right.
And I'm talking about Elon Musk and Trump doing this, because most of us knew from the time that we were kids that if our parents passed away, we would be eligible for Social Security benefits.
Yes.
Who doesn't
Yes.
know that
Right.
as a dependent?
You're absolutely correct.
But I tell you, who doesn't know it is Elon Musk, the
Right.
person in there that's going in chopping stuff up. But
Yes.
I remember being 10 years old and my grandfather sitting me down and having a conversation with me and showing me what his Social Security card looked like, giving me the number and saying, if something ever happened to me, you can apply to get some benefits from my untimely passing. I knew
Right.
that ever since I was a kid.
Absolutely.
But now you telling me we're going to put somebody in here that we've made a billionaire to, the richest man in the world, and put him in charge of a program like that. Okay.
Yeah. So their checks and balances are not checking and balancing.
There are no checks.
You're probably right.
Or
You're right.
balance.
Our balance. So true.
Well, since we're talking about costing, this is something I found quite interesting. And, the first time there was some talk about some of the issues with the current president and double dipping, if you will. Well, he has a habit that is costing the U.S. taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. And since he's been back in office, he's fired all these federal workers to shut down the agencies and trying to save money and what have you. Well, the one thing that he has not stopped is charging the government for all his golf trips back and forth to Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
And to everywhere he goes, staying on his property and charging them a lot more than the normal rate. As an example, during his first term, his properties had a history of overcharging the Secret Service by as much as 300% above authorized government hotel ratings. The Trump organization charged Secret Service as much as $1,815 a room per night.
Wow.
For staying in his hotel. Now get this. You remember the Trump Plaza Hotel, the Trump Hotel in DC that he bought? And when he left office, he sold it. Well, now he's negotiating to buy it back. I wonder why.
We know why. It's an opportunity to make more money.
With 7 trips so far during his current term, the U.S. government has likely already spent more than $23 million on Trump's golf outings.
Wow.
And he's only been in office how many days?
Maybe 90? Is it 90 days yet?
Making a big deal out of all this money they're saving.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We're not saving it there.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know if he's intending to save any money. Most of this stuff is revenge.
It is.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I do my best not to pay attention to him. I don't want to be angry.
I do understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it's so funny. Every day you're reading about people that said they voted for Trump both times or this time, and now they're so disappointed because of the programs that he is affecting is causing a negative impact on them. And I guess they thought they were protected or what have you. A lot of them didn't even think about the ramifications of having him in office.
Right.
You've got people now that their loved ones are being deported because the visa's been canceled. Okay. And it's just total chaos is what's going on.
Their loved ones are being deported. Many of them are losing their jobs, or family members are losing jobs. Stock market is down. There's a lot of negatives that people are experiencing due to him being.
But he's still talking about Joe Biden, like Joe Biden is the president. What are you talking about Joe Biden for?
He still brings up Obama from time to time, and that's many years ago. So anyone he wants that type of person. He's a narcissist. They tend to want to blame someone else on every negative that they experience or others experience. It's never going to be their fault. They're never going to take in ownership for anything that's negative. On the other hand, if anything positive happens, whether they had anything to do with it or not, it's because of them. So that just happens to be the
I had a friend of mine.
Zinged him on his golf game. Joe Biden zinged. Joe Biden said he fills out his scorecard before he even tees off on the first hole. You know, to fill out his score.
And then he brags about winning.
Yeah. Too bad.
He's funny. He is absolutely funny.
Is. You have to laugh. You do have to laugh.
And I do laugh, but there is a flip side of this, that there's a lot of concern out there and angst about where we're headed with this, you know, and will there be a correction? And that's the only other thing. And I guess what I kind of enjoy is listening to the radio personalities that try to defend everything he does and explain everything that he does. I even heard them trying to explain him saying that Zelensky started the war. That's the one I really found funny.
Yeah, that's
well, it is funny and it's sad at the same time.
Yes, it is.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll soldier on.
Yes, we will.
Hopefully in 3-4 years he'll be gone. Hopefully.
That's so true.
Yeah. Move on. You know, I think you can. You have to appreciate what you have,
yes,
and not what you want. And people were convinced that Joe Biden wasn't good for the country, despite what good he was doing,
right,
despite the fact that the numbers were all in his favor.
Right.
They kept talking about a recession, and a recession that never happened. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't end up in one here.
It's starting now.
In the next year or so.
Yes.
Because of greed.
Right.
So we'll go on. Anything else from you guys?
Tom, I just want to congratulate all the teams who made the NCAA tournament. The SEC had 14 men teams to make it and 10 women's teams. And I read this weekend where University of Tennessee women's team has made all of the NCAA tournaments in the history of women playing basketball. So that is something certainly to be congratulated. And even the state of Alabama has 4 teams that made it into the NCAA tournament. Auburn, Alabama, Troy, and Alabama State will all be going dancing. So want to congratulate those teams.
Okay, sounds good. All right, anything else? All right, well, let's see what Sean's got for us. She's got a minute.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute. Happy Tuesday. We're at the halfway mark of Women's History Month, and today we'll take a look at how the United States Naval Academy admits women for the first time in its history with the induction of 81 female midshipmen. In May 1980, Elizabeth Ann Rowe became the first woman member of the class to graduate. 4 years later, Christine Holder Reed became the first female midshipman to graduate at the top of her class. The U.S. Naval Academy opened in Annapolis, Maryland in October 1845 with 50 midshipmen students and 7 professors. Known as the Naval School until 1850, the curriculum included mathematics, navigation, gunnery, steam, chemistry, English, natural philosophy, and French. The Naval School officially became the U.S. Naval Academy in 1850, and the new curriculum went into effect requiring midshipmen to study at the Academy for 4 years and to train aboard ships each summer. The basic format that remains at the Academy to this day. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Sean. Well, let's move forward to our G-list guest for today. Hollywood has the A-list here on Tuesdays with Tom. We have the G-list. Now, G-list guest today is Emily Hedrick. Sometimes we call her the communicator. Emily has been a team member with us, with Best Girl since 2018. But Emily is also the Chief Creative Officer at Brand-itude. It's a creative marketing company dedicated to crafting unique brand personalities and fostering connections between businesses and their audiences. Let's go to Emily. Good morning, Emily. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing great. How's everybody doing this morning?
It's good to have you here with us this morning. Great. Well, you're
Thank
always
you.
with us. But
That's what I was going to say. I'm always here. I just get to be on camera today.
Well, thank you. So, Michael,
Thank
Barbara,
you.
which one of you guys want to start off questions with Emily?
I'll start. I want to say congratulations, Emily, on starting your company. And talk to us about Brand-itude. How did you come up with that name?
So it took quite some time. I guess I probably started thinking about launching my own company in about July of 23. And I think it took until September. Brand-itude came up kind of early, but we kept like putting it back down on the list and looking at some other stuff. But I kept going back to it. I was like, this is perfect. Like branding, marketing, attitude, like all of it together. It says what I do. So we went with Brand-itude, and I love even when with Best Girl, when you have a different kind of name, people are always saying something about your name. So I have some people who look at it and don't say a word and probably think nothing about it. And then I have my people who are like, I love your name. And I'm like, thank you. So
Cool. Thank you.
So is branding with an attitude then?
Exactly. And that's really what it is, a lot of companies feel like they need to be on social media or feel like they need to do a newsletter or have whatever on their website. And a lot of it doesn't have a whole lot of personality. It's very cut and dry. It's, they just stick something up there just to get it up there. And I am very much an advocate of making your brand have a personality. So, some of the crazy ones, if you've seen them online, like Wendy's, they're crazy. They'll post all sorts of crazy stuff, but that's their brand personality. So that's what I just try to bring into these small businesses is, giving it a voice, a consistent voice, so that, when people see it, when people hear it, they know that, oh, that's that company.
That's interesting. You're kind of using a little psychology. Excuse me, Tom, but what I wanted to figure out is when you go in and you sit down with a small business and you said you wanted to bring their personality to life, what do you do with somebody that, so to speak, has the personality of cardboard?
Right.
They don't have an outgoing, you know what I mean? There's some people, they're just, ho hum
For
stuff.
sure.
How do you bring out that personality and incorporate that in what you do to make them stand out? That seemed like it'd be a tough one because they're not giving you a lot to work with.
It's very true. And because people, depending on their audience, some people feel like, well, I can't have any personality. I have to be stiff and, suit and tie. And I don't want to use any exclamation points. I don't want to use any emojis, like none of it. And so at least for me, I don't fight back, but I try to encourage, this is what will resonate with people. If you have a personality, maybe your personality doesn't have to be silly or, a smart aleck or whatever some of these other ones are. But if your brand personality is smart or informative, then we're going to put out informative stuff all the time so that people are seeing, oh, here's a fun fact. Here is some information about the company, like history of the company kind of stuff. I work with a lot of accountants. So like I said, like some of the fun facts will be like in 15 1519 BC was the first, like the first time somebody put a ledger together. So, it's just some crazy fun fact, but like just adding fun, but still being serious. So I do have people like that, like I said, that, they're not maybe going to be smart Alex or silly or whatever, but at least putting that intelligence, that educational factor out there is like, okay, that's what that brand is. That brand is always going to be a resource for us.
Well,
and go ahead.
go
Tony.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so if a small company or an individual comes to you, they're an entrepreneur, small, basically just starting, what are you helping them develop their website? Is it all social media? Tell me the types of things you're doing for these individuals to help them get their word out there about their company.
Yes, ma'am. So it's a little bit of everything. So I always just have a discovery meeting. We sit down, we'll talk about the company, we'll talk about where they're at, if they do have any social media, if they do have a website, if they have an email list. Some people do have some of those things, but they don't really know what to do with it.
Right.
Or they may have nothing. And so, honestly, I like to start kind of at scratch because then it just goes from 0 to 100. But it just depends. I mean, some people, in this day, it's good to have a website. Any company needs to have a website, but are people really spending a lot of time on the company website? Probably no. And so that's one thing too, when we are building websites, when people are like, well, I want to have this, I want to have the founder story, I want to have my mission, vision, values, all this stuff. It's like, if you really want that, we'll put it on there. That's fine. But what are the chances that somebody's really sitting down and going through every page of your website? They're not. They're just looking for whatever services that you offer, or maybe looking at your blog, and that's it. So just kind of figuring out from the people what they kind of imagine, and then what I imagine, because we may have two totally different things. So I may recommend, okay, well, you have a website and you have a Facebook, but let's move over here to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a lot of where a lot of professionals are. And today's social media landscape is a little crazy because people are moving off of Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and moving to Blue Sky is a new social media. Right. So I have my clients that are like, I want to get off of X and get on Blue Sky. I have some people who are like, I really don't care. If Twitter goes crazy, we'll just be there when it goes crazy and just be a part of it or whatever. But just figuring out the right strategy, where their audience is, what message we're really trying to put out there. Like a lot of my clients, barely any of them have Instagram, because it's just not a platform. If you're selling jewelry or health and beauty products or something like that, where you want to have an image and you can see the person like putting the stuff on their skin, stuff like that. Yes, you should be on Instagram. But when you're selling accounting services or some sort of software tool, Instagram probably really isn't the place.
Yes.
So just trying to figure out, the best ways to be on social media and what is most effective for the company.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you, I've been knowing you for a while. So why don't you maybe give us a little bit of background? How'd you end up in Alabama? Because you're from Maryland. And I'll just tell them we met at the hotel. You were working at the hotel. And we've been together. I don't know how that together may not be the right word, but we've been I'm going to say together for about 8 years now. So give us a little bit of history about how you ended up in Alabama. You decided to go into the business, that kind of thing.
Okay, I'll give you the synopsis. So if I'm getting too deep, just tell me, Emily, move on. But so, out of high school, when it was time to go to college, I was one of those people who did not want to be around everybody that I had gone to school with previously. Not the people, but just I didn't want to go where everybody else was going. Everybody else was going to West Virginia, Maryland, some of the schools in between. I always wanted to go far, far away. And so I made it into Auburn. That's a whole story within itself, but I made it to Auburn, and got my work through school. I worked at the hotel. I worked several serving jobs through school, and I graduated with my degree in public relations. I don't really know what I would, we're all young and we get degrees, and went to this conference and I was like, I'm going to be a sports PR person. Like, I don't know what that was all about, but moving on. Then I started working with Best Girl with Mr. Gossam and Dr. Gossam. And through them, I had my hands in a lot of things. We were working on books. We were working on speaking events. We were working on trainings and, everything in between. And so I got a lot of experience at Best Girl. I had moved down to Florida, and did a little bit of everything, internal and external communication. And after that, so and then right before COVID, I moved back up here around the Auburn area. And at that point, I started doing some client work, just a little bit of I was in an organization with some women. So I started doing some of their websites and social media, just a little bit. And then I got a part-time job at a company called Insightful Accountant, which is an online publication for accountants. And my good friend Molly got me a job there. We worked together, and that was really fun. But unfortunately, we were both laid off from that job. And so then I went into another company called Bookkeep, and that was a software tool that accountants use. And I worked there for a little over a year before I had Isaiah in 2023. And during that time, I was laid off again. It was a startup, so I was not the only one laid off and, anything like that. But I was laid off during maternity leave. I had my leave. I had severance. I had some time to figure out what I wanted to do. So, I started applying probably June, after 12 weeks, I started applying for jobs, and I had an interview or two, and good companies, good paying jobs, good stuff. But I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to go work for somebody again? And I know not everybody gets laid off all the time, but I had just been through 2 layoffs, and I was just like, why go do this and put my faith in somebody else's business when I have the contacts, I have the skills and the knowledge. So I'm just going to start reaching out to people and seeing if I can get some side jobs. And I did. And then one person was like, I kind of want you to do everything. Can I just hire you on a retainer? And I was like, absolutely. So I'm still working with them too. But that kind of kicked me off into everybody else. And like I said, when I was at Insightful Accountant, I hosted webinars, and we did hundreds of webinars in a year. So I made contacts with app software, with different speakers, with different accountants. When I was at Bookkeep, I had some of those same contacts. And so I have kind of stayed in the accounting niche, which I actually really like. I have a couple different kinds of clients, but it's much easier to just kind of stay in the mind of one specialization and one, they're the same kind of people. They have the same kind of problems. They have the same kind of deadlines and busy seasons and all of that stuff. So I've just stayed in accounting. I love working with accountants. I also love, people are always like, well, do you have an accounting background? I'm like, no, I have no idea. Don't talk to me about the technicalities. Other than with my business now, I get a monthly keeping report. So I am starting to understand more, but no, I am not in there doing the accounting at all.
Well, we met at the hotel, and I don't know who decided what. We decided we'd hire you, or you decided you'd hire us. I don't know. But let's talk. I don't know, just one thing I know you took from us that works well, and it's worked for us for a bunch of years, and it's NJR, the no jerk rule. We have a no jerk rule, and if somebody's a jerk, we don't work with them. And you were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, I am so thankful for, you know, my experience with Best Girl and working with many different types of people and different, you know, in different like corporate settings, higher ed settings, all of those things. And then even when I was working with Bookkeep, I was part of a community, an accounting community. And so they'd have roundtable discussions twice a month. And a lot of the discussions were about, you know, client communication, client onboarding, pricing, and just the fact that there are plenty of clients out there and you don't have to work with them. There's plenty of other people who do what you do. And so, you know, it doesn't have to be like a, I don't like you, you don't like me kind of thing, but people work very differently. And, you know, that's part of the no jerk rule is, you know, if you work differently than I work, that's okay. But you can't be on my back every single day trying to micromanage me when you hired me to perform a project or whatever it is, you know. So yeah, I did have my first kind of walk away kind of thing that happened yesterday, just because the project was completed and it was chaotic and it was not something that I wanted to continue, even if it was a, you know, recurring monthly client. It just isn't in it. It just wasn't worth it for me. And I think a lot of people, especially starting out, probably don't think about that or don't, you know, they just think, okay, well, let me get a client and make this money because that's what I need. But it's just not sustainable. And, you know, when somebody else can affect your day to day, you're not sleeping, you're working all day and night on something for this person who seems like they cannot be pleased no matter what you do, you don't need to work for them. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Anybody, any more questions? I want, you know, and let me also, because I know a lot about Emily, because we've been together for 8 years or so. But your mother now, and that's we've all enjoyed that. I'll just say to everybody who's watching out there, near the end of the show, Isaiah, who's Emily's and Jay's son, will come on. What is Isaiah? Is he 2 now?
He just turned 2. Yeah.
He just turned 2. Isaiah will come on, and we just all have a good time talking with Isaiah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's wonderful. So they have a great family, Emily, Jay, and Isaiah, and we enjoy them. We have a lot of
And
fun.
Banjo.
And Banjo, that's right. Don't leave out Banjo.
Banjo is the dog for all of y'all.
Yes.
The fur baby.
Yes. Yeah. It was funny. Actually, this morning, Isaiah and Jay left and went and got coffees for us. But when they left, Banjo just sat here and cried. Because I was like, I guess normally, you know, Jay doesn't, I mean, not to say he doesn't take him, just the 2 of them, but like normally it's all of us if we're going to go, you know, and Banjo will stay. But today it was just me and Banjo at home and he was crying because Isaiah was gone.
You're absolutely right about the names. In 2004, we changed the name to Best Girl, and it was Girl, G-U-R-L, and that's sort of between Joyce and me and what I call her. You know, at first it was interesting because I would call people and, you know, Best Girl will come up on their phone, and then they'd answer and I'd say, "Hey man, how you doing?" He said, Man, I thought this was one of those 800 numbers. I didn't know what this was. But now people know what it is, and they're okay with it. They like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's catchy.
And I think it's better to be, it's better to have a different name than to be the
Yes.
same old Emily Hedrick Consulting Group or whatever,
Right.
And then on the website, we ended up putting on there how that name came about. And people read it, man, they enjoy it. They like talking about it. So it works out well. You ended up with a nickname, the Communicator. We all had nicknames. And so everything is working out well. Any other questions, Michael, Barbara?
Yeah, I have a couple, and I'll start with the first one, and I'll go to the second. Nowadays, it looks like, as far as advertising and marketing, in particularly small businesses, but I'd say everybody, they seem to be going to social media. Would you say that social media platforms are the new, I'll say new wave, for lack of a better term, new wave of getting your message out there rather than the normal outlets of radio, TV ads now?
I think it's easier, more common. I think it depends on your audience. I live in Alabama, so I see Alexander Shunara billboards all over the place. He is billboarding it up, and I don't have as much experience in the traditional advertising, such as billboards, radio, stuff like that. I think it's still, I have clients and we'll talk about it. And depending on who they are and what they want to do, we still will place ads in, maybe not the newspaper, but whatever, like the digital newspaper in their town. So I think social media is just an accessible and kind of, it's not free, but it is. Like, social media is free. If you make a Facebook page and you're posting to your Facebook, that's free. You don't have to pay for any of that. But if you want to boost ads or, target specific audience or whatever, you can do that through Facebook. It's a little, like I said, I don't really know the numbers. I'm sure it's a lot less expensive than renting a billboard for 6 months. But you just have different, like I said, I think it's just different strategies depending on what you're doing. And, so, my dad, we talk about my dad. He's been on here before. He is a union organizer, and we were talking the other day because they're launching a campaign, and they just bought 2 digital billboards, and they're doing geofencing, which is like when you're in a certain location, you'll get ads for, whatever the target is, and radio ads and stuff like that. And that stuff works because of where they are. And, the people that are going to that job are going to pass that billboard and see it. So is he also on social media? Yes. But are as many people being reached on social media as that billboard? Probably not. But you also can't quantify how many people are seeing the billboard as easily as on social media. So it's a mixed bag of, do you want to see the numbers and do you want to know exactly and see exactly how much you're spending and all of that kind of stuff? Or do you kind of want to go big and maybe get a bigger return?
Okay. Well, and my second question, you were talking about, and I picked this up in your bio, about marketing or specializing in branding for accountants and financial professionals. And that's something that they taught us at Bell, which is called a vertical market. And that's what I saw in that, where you said you focus on the accountants and financial professionals because they have the same issues, same problems, and all that type of stuff. And you can just go right down the line. I find it interesting that that became your go-to vertical market, given your personality and background. How did that come together? So,
I mean, honestly, just the contacts. And when I was at Insightful Accountant, that was my first introduction. And so, like I said, I sat through all these webinars. I sat through all these planning meetings. I heard about busy season and tax season and 1099s and this, that, and the other. And it's just very easy to understand, yeah, don't be trying to sell these people something in February and March, because they're not going to be looking at it. Their heads down in tax season. So I have to even remind, like, I wrote a LinkedIn article about that probably 2 months ago, because a lot of app companies, they just hire whoever for marketing. Maybe they have experience in marketing, maybe they're kind of new, or sales. And these people will try to be selling, trying to be doing all this during busy season. And it's like, know your audience, guys. Just know your audience.
Right.
But it's, just the contacts and really just word of mouth. I started with one person and then they gave me to another person. And so everybody's just kind of connected. But like I said, I do have a couple outliers, and not that it's less fun, but like my one is a travel agency. And if I'm working on accounting stuff and then I have to swap over to travel agency stuff, it's a totally, none of these things relate. So the travel agency stuff is going to take more time than any of my other clients that I'm already, working on with accounting. So it kind of happened on accident, but it was a happy accident. So I like my vertical. I like being in that specialization, and there's plenty of accountants, accounting firms, softwares, accounting communities to go around. There's a lot of other people that do marketing in the space that I do, and we are all kind of specializing in accounting.
thank you.
I think one thing, talking about the social media earlier versus the advertising, you can target more on the advertising. Social media, you say something and somebody takes offense at it, and you're into a whole nother conversation that you didn't have any intention of getting into. And so I don't know. I just, I think it's, and then you got to figure out what's true on social media, because a lot of the stuff isn't true. And so I think you can put a little bit of time into some advertising, some marketing, and it's hopefully it'll work. Yeah. It'll work for you.
Do not go to social media for tax advice.
Yeah.
Right.
I go to social media really for entertainment.
Yes.
It's interesting, but yeah.
One thing I will say, just piggybacking on all of that, is exactly what you just said, Mr. Gossam. You go for entertainment or to connect with your friends or whatever. But another part of that is liking your friends' pages, so that you are just, it's an easy way to show support. Go to the LinkedIn page, follow them, share one of their posts every once in a while, something like that, that again, it's free, but it gets, you're showing your support to your friends and family or whoever that helps their business. So that's just an easy way that you can use social media to help somebody else's business.
And LinkedIn is different, so to speak, than Facebook. And you probably get more truth on LinkedIn, and you get more, I think you mentioned, professional people on LinkedIn. Facebook, you get what you pay for. You don't pay anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like, even today too, a lot of people are like, well, do I need to have a Facebook page? And I'm like, do you really have to have one? Probably not. But again, it's just part of that being a legitimate company. Like, if you go and search for somebody and they don't have a website or they don't have a Facebook page, you're probably like, is this a real company, or is this just something that I somehow got scammed about or something?
There's a lot of that.
I have a question I wanted to ask you, because you kind of alluded to this a little bit, where now it was Twitter, now it's X, and then now there's a new one called Blue, right?
Yeah, Blue Sky. Yep.
Blue sky.
Blue Sky. Okay. And then I remember early on, many, many years ago, it was something called MySpace.
MySpace.
Yeah, I had a MySpace. R.I.P.
Okay. MySpace, rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then it evolved from there to Facebook now and / guess Meta. How you as, and I would call you a professional, would I call you a social media specialist? What would your title be?
Well, that's why I went with chief creative, because some people really focus and really, you know, their job at a company or whatever is social media. And that has been part of my job at every company. But I am not, you know, I'm not a TikTok person. I was not a Vine person. Like, I've not ever really sat and created video stuff, even reels on Instagram or Facebook. The social media that I was brought up into was Twitter and Facebook, and then Instagram came out, and then, you know, and then TikTok, and then all these other ones. So I would not say I am a social media professional. But that's kind of been part of my struggle even before I started my business, was just like, okay, well, at all of these companies that I've worked with, I've worn 20 different hats. I don't have a specific specialization in communication. So, you know, it's that. It's like whether you have a lot of things that you know just a little bit about or one thing that you're deep into. And I would say that I'm more like, I know a little bit about everything. Maybe not everything, but with social media, like you said too, I mean, it's always evolving. It's always changing. There's going to be a new platform. There's this. It's deciding which one to go after, because, you know, Instagram has Threads, which is just like Twitter. But then Blue Sky came out, and Blue Sky was created by the person that created Twitter originally. But it's more like a co-op. However I don't know exactly, but there's not like one main person like how Elon is over Twitter. It's like a co-op for Blue Sky. So that's why a lot of people are moving to Blue Sky, because they're like, okay, it's not owned by Meta. It's not owned by one crazy billionaire. You know, right. So it's more of probably a sustainable social media that will probably be around versus like Threads and Instagram. They're going to keep changing so that they fit, so that they can do what the others can do.
Okay. And you have to stay on top of all of that.
All of it.
I try. Yeah, like I said, you know, we're into Blue Sky. I really do like Blue Sky. I was a huge Twitter person, because like when I was at Auburn and I had journalism classes, you know, that was one of the things. And that's where, you know, like you said, you got to see what's real and what's fake. But when there's something happening, breaking news, Twitter's on it, because there's people that are, you know, all over the place all the time that are saying this is what's happening. And that's what they told us. Like when I was in my journalism classes, they were like, when you go to conferences, when you go to sporting events, when you, whatever, if you're watching the Super Bowl, you should be live tweeting, because that just keeps the information flowing. But now it's just a hellscape. So, right. So now we moved over to Blue Sky.
Very interesting.
I think one of the things that's, to me, that's been most important in my career in terms of communication is relationships. And if you create relationships with people, regardless of how much you've learned, how much you've done, but if you create relationships, especially if you own the business, you can sustain your business over time because of those relationships. And, you know, if you're not willing to put the time in on relationships, I don't really care what you do, you're probably not going to be successful. You know, I never done TikTok. I never heard of the Blue Sky and whatever, but I don't necessarily need to, because I think because of the relationships I've created. And So it really depends on where your strengths come in. So anyway, anybody got anything else? Emily, you got anything else?
I don't think so. Thank
It
you.
only
all.
took me
I
8
enjoyed
years
this.
to get you to come on here.
Hey, no, maybe 5, but
Anyway, we appreciate you, and you know that.
Yes.
And
this was fun.
it's
enjoyed
been great. You've been a wonderful person to work with, and we have enjoyed you. And as long as you want to be involved, you can be involved.
Thank
You have a permanent. What do I call it? I don't even know what I call it. You're here permanently. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Well, thank you, Emily. It was great. We appreciate it. I'm glad you came on here.
Thank you.
All right. Let me close out with my closing comment, or as I see it, deal with Women's History Month. I got some inspiring quotes to celebrate Women's History Month, focusing on empowerment, equality, and the contributions of women throughout history. Here are some quotes. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. Strong women don't have attitudes, they have standards. Girls should never be afraid to be smart. The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who is going to stop me. Hillary Clinton said women's rights are human rights. As women achieve power, the barriers will fall. Michelle Obama said, the world needs strong women, women who will lift and not tear others up, women who will make their voice heard and use it for good. Harriet Beecher Stowe said, women are the real architects of society. And the final quote is, and still I rise, Maya Angelou. And that's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. We want to thank our sponsor, Best Girl. We want to thank again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, and Michael and Joyce. We want to thank our G-list guest, Emily Hedrick. And that's it for this March 18th in the new year 2025. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Blessings.